The undercover mission. Charlotte Morgan adjusted her black cap as she stepped out of the taxi, pulling it lower over her blonde hair. The Grand Wellington Hotel towered before her, its gleaming facade reflecting the afternoon sun. Crystal chandeliers sparkled through tall windows, casting golden light onto the pristine sidewalk where uniformed doormen stood at attention. She smoothed her worn jeans and hoisted her modest canvas bag onto her shoulder. Charlotte definitely didn't look like the typical Grand Wellington guest, and that was exactly what her husband Christopher had suggested. "Just observe," Christopher had said that morning as he kissed her goodbye. "I need honest eyes on this acquisition. The management doesn't know I'm sending you, they've never met either of us." Christopher Morgan had built his hotel empire from nothing, acquiring struggling properties and transforming them into profitable gems. The Grand Wellington was his latest purchase, a once prestigious establishment that had fallen into decline despite its opulent appearance. As Charlotte approached the entrance, the doormen exchanged glances. Their professional smiles tightened as they assessed her casual attire. One reluctantly opened the door with a curt, "Welcome to the Grand Wellington," his tone suggesting she might be lost. Inside, the lobby was a testament to old-world luxury. Marble floors, gilded mirrors, and plush velvet furnishings created an atmosphere of grandeur. Well-dressed guests milled about, their designer outfits and expensive luggage making Charlotte's simple clothing seem even more out of place. At the reception desk, a young man named James Porter looked up from his computer. His professionally pleasant expression faltered when he saw Charlotte approaching. "May I help you?" he asked, his voice carrying a hint of doubt. "I'd like to see your rooms, please," Charlotte said with a warm smile. "I'm interested in staying here." James's eyes darted to her worn canvas bag, then to her casual clothes. "Do you have a reservation, ma'am?" "Not yet. I wanted to check the accommodations first." His fingers hovered over his keyboard. "Our standard rooms begin at $800 per night. Suites start at $2,500. Charlotte nodded, undeterred. "That's fine. I'd still like to see what's available." Before James could respond, a sharp voice cut through the conversation. "Is there a problem here?" "The humiliation." Victoria Harrington, the hotel's director of operations, approached with measured steps. At 50, she embodied corporate elegance, tailored black suit, pearl necklace, and not a silver hair out of place. Her practiced smile didn't reach her eyes as she assessed Charlotte from head to toe. "No problem," Charlotte replied calmly. "I was just asking to see your available rooms." Victoria's gaze swept over Charlotte's appearance, her expression hardening. "I see. James, I'll handle this." She turned to Charlotte with a condescending smile. "Ma'am, the Grand Wellington is a 5-star establishment. Our clientele expects certain standards." Charlotte met Victoria's gaze evenly. "I understand. I'm still interested in seeing your rooms." Victoria's smile tightened. "Perhaps another hotel would better suit your budget. The Comfort Inn down the street offers very reasonable rates." The dismissal hung in the air like a slap. Several nearby guests glanced over, some with embarrassment, others with thinly veiled amusement. Charlotte stood her ground. "I'd prefer to stay here, if that's all right." Victoria's smile vanished completely. She leaned in, lowering her voice to a harsh whisper. "Let me be blunt. We cater to a specific clientele. Your appearance suggests you would be more comfortable elsewhere." Charlotte felt her cheeks flush but maintained her composure. "I can assure you, the cost isn't an issue." Victoria raised a perfectly shaped eyebrow. "Ma'am, this isn't about money. It's about maintaining our atmosphere." She straightened, her voice rising slightly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual guests to attend to." As Victoria walked away, Charlotte heard her murmur to James, "Keep an eye on her. She looks like she's casing the place." The insult stung, but Charlotte had a job to do. She wandered through the hotel's public areas, noting every detail despite the increasingly hostile stares from staff. The once impeccable Grand Wellington was showing subtle signs of neglect, a chipped marble column here, a frayed carpet edge there. When Charlotte entered the hotel restaurant to inspect the dining facilities, a hostess immediately stepped into her path. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but the restaurant is fully booked for lunch," she said, despite the numerous empty tables visible behind her. "I just wanted to look at the menu," Charlotte replied. "I'm afraid that's not possible without a reservation," the hostess said firmly. But Charlotte's real shock came when she attempted to use the restroom. Victoria appeared as if from nowhere, flanked by 2 security guards. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," Victoria announced loudly enough for other guests to hear. "You're making our guests uncomfortable." "I haven't done anything wrong," Charlotte protested. "You're loitering without being a registered guest. This is private property." Victoria's voice carried across the lobby. "Security, please escort this woman out." As the guards approached, Charlotte realized she had no choice. The humiliation was complete as they walked her through the lobby, past staring guests and smirking staff members. "Get out. You're broke." Victoria shouted behind her, ensuring everyone heard the final insult. Minutes later, as Charlotte stood on the sidewalk trying to process what had just happened, a familiar black sedan pulled up to the hotel's entrance. Her heart sank as she realized Christopher had arrived for his scheduled meeting with the management, and he'd just witnessed his wife's public humiliation. The investigation. Christopher Morgan stepped out of his sedan, his jaw clenched as he watched his wife being escorted from the hotel he now owned. He'd arrived early for his meeting with the management team, only to witness Victoria Harrington publicly humiliating Charlotte. He helped Charlotte into the car, his hand gentle on her arm. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. Charlotte nodded, though her cheeks were still flushed with embarrassment. "I got what we needed, Chris. More than we bargained for." As they drove around the block, Charlotte shared her observations. The discrimination she'd faced was just the tip of the iceberg. She'd documented service failures, maintenance issues, and a staff culture that prioritized appearance over genuine hospitality. "They never even asked my name," Charlotte said, pulling out her phone to show him her notes. "Victoria Harrington made assumptions based purely on how I looked and treated me like I was some kind of criminal." Christopher's expression darkened as he read through her detailed observations. "This explains why their customer satisfaction scores have been declining. They're turning away potential guests based on prejudice." "There's more," Charlotte continued. "I overheard staff conversations. They're cutting corners on maintenance, overcharging for services, and the restaurant hostess lied about being fully booked. There were at least 15 empty tables." Christopher parked the car and turned to face his wife. "I'm sorry you had to endure that. But this information is invaluable. We now know exactly what needs to change." "What are you going to do?" Charlotte asked. A cold smile crossed Christopher's face. "I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve. But first, I have a meeting to attend." 20 minutes later, Christopher Morgan walked through the Grand Wellington's front doors. This time, the doormen practically bowed as they recognized the expensive cut of his suit and the confidence in his stride. The same staff who had treated his wife with contempt now rushed to accommodate him. "Mr. Morgan." Victoria Harrington appeared immediately, her demeanor completely transformed. "Welcome to the Grand Wellington. We're so honored to have you here." Christopher smiled politely. "Thank you, Ms. Harrington. Shall we proceed to the conference room? I'm eager to meet the team and discuss the future of this property." As they walked through the lobby, Christopher's trained eye caught every detail Charlotte had mentioned. The chipped marble, the frayed carpets, the staff members who straightened up only when they noticed him watching. In the elevator, Victoria chatted nervously about the hotel's distinguished clientele and exclusive atmosphere. Christopher listened without comment, his mind already forming a plan. The conference room was filled with department heads and senior staff, all eager to impress the new owner. Christopher took his seat at the head of the mahogany table and looked around at the assembled faces. "Before we begin," he said, his voice calm but carrying an edge that made everyone sit up straighter, "I'd like to share an interesting experience I had today. You see, I sent someone to evaluate your services firsthand. Someone who could observe your operations without the bias of knowing who I am." Victoria shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Oh. And how did that go?" Christopher's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Quite revealing, actually. Tell me, Ms. Harrington, what's your policy regarding potential guests who don't meet your visual standards?" The revelation. The conference room fell silent. Victoria's confident expression wavered as she processed Christopher's question. "I'm not sure I understand what you mean, Mr. Morgan," she said carefully. Christopher leaned back in his chair, his gaze steady. "Let me be more specific. What would you do if someone dressed casually, say, in jeans and a sweater, came in asking to see your rooms?" Victoria glanced around the table at her colleagues, some of whom were beginning to look uncomfortable. "Well, we would assess whether they're a good fit for our establishment. The Grand Wellington maintains certain standards." "Standards," Christopher repeated. "Interesting word. Would those standards include publicly humiliating potential guests? Lying about restaurant availability? Having security escort someone out for the crime of looking middle class?" The color drained from Victoria's face. Around the table, staff members exchanged worried glances. "Mr. Morgan, if there was some kind of misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Christopher interrupted, his voice growing colder. "My representative was treated with contempt, discrimination, and outright hostility. She was called broke, accused of casing the joint, and thrown out like a criminal. All because she didn't look wealthy enough for your taste." James Porter, the desk clerk, shifted nervously in his seat. The restaurant manager stared at his hands. Even the housekeeping supervisor seemed to shrink into her chair. Christopher stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the street. "You know what the most interesting part is? The person you treated so poorly has a master's degree in hospitality management and has been instrumental in turning around 6 failing hotels. She's forgotten more about genuine service than this entire room knows." He turned back to face the group. "But here's the part that really fascinates me. You all transformed the moment I walked through those doors. Suddenly, service was impeccable. Suddenly, you were all smiles and accommodation. Why? Because I look the part? Because my suit costs more than some people make in a month?" Victoria tried to regain her composure. "Mr. Morgan, the Grand Wellington has always prided itself on exclusivity." "Exclusivity based on what?" Christopher's voice rose slightly. "Exclusivity should be about exceptional service, attention to detail, and making every guest feel valued. Not about judging people by their clothes and bank account." He walked back to his chair but didn't sit down. Instead, he placed both hands on the table and leaned forward. "Let me tell you what real hospitality looks like. It's treating a person in jeans with the same respect you'd show someone in a 3-piece suit. It's about service that doesn't depend on appearance or assumptions about wealth. It's about understanding that true luxury lies in making people feel welcome, not in making them feel excluded." The room was dead silent. Christopher could see the realization dawning on several faces: they were in serious trouble. "Now," he continued, straightening up, "I want to know who was directly involved in today's incident. And I want the truth." Victoria's hands trembled slightly as she clasped them together. "Sir, if we knew she was connected to you." "That's exactly the problem," Christopher cut her off. "Your behavior shouldn't change based on who someone is connected to. Every person who walks through those doors deserves basic respect and courtesy." He looked around the room, his gaze settling on each person. "I'm going to ask one more time. Who was involved in ejecting my wife from this hotel? The ultimate consequence." The word "wife" hung in the air like a thunderclap. Victoria's face went ashen, and several staff members audibly gasped. James Porter looked like he might be sick. Your wife. Victoria stammered. Charlotte Morgan, Christopher said quietly. The woman you publicly humiliated, called broke, and had thrown out by security. Yes, that was my wife. Victoria tried to speak, but no words came. Around the table, the reality of the situation was sinking in with devastating clarity. Christopher continued, his voice calm but carrying the weight of absolute authority. Victoria, you're terminated immediately. James, you're done as well. Security guards who participated, gone. Restaurant hostess who lied about availability, finished. Mr. Morgan, please, Victoria found her voice, desperation creeping in. If I had known. If you had known, you would have behaved differently. That's precisely the problem. Christopher's eyes were cold. Your job was to provide excellent service to everyone, not just people you deemed worthy. He turned to address the remaining staff. Let me be absolutely clear about something. This hotel will operate on principles of respect, dignity, and genuine hospitality. We will never again turn away potential guests based on their appearance. We will treat every person who walks through those doors as if they could be our most important customer, because they are. Victoria made one last desperate attempt. Sir, I've been in this industry for 20 years. I was only trying to maintain the hotel's reputation. You destroyed it, Christopher said flatly. Customer satisfaction scores have plummeted under your management. You've created a culture of prejudice and poor service. The Grand Wellington's reputation was built on hospitality, not exclusivity based on clothing. He walked to the door, then turned back. Those of you remaining have a choice. Embrace a new culture of genuine service and respect, or find employment elsewhere. I'll be bringing in a new management team next week, and we'll be retraining the entire staff. Christopher paused at the threshold. Oh, and Victoria. Security will escort you out now. I hope you understand the irony. 2 weeks later, Charlotte Morgan stood in the Grand Wellington's lobby, this time wearing an elegant business suit. The renovation was already underway, not just of the physical space, but of the entire culture. The new general manager, Maria Santos, approached with a genuine smile. Mrs. Morgan, how do things look? Charlotte watched as the staff interacted with guests, all guests, with warmth and professionalism. A young backpacker was being helped with the same attention as an elderly woman with expensive jewelry. It's exactly what we envisioned, Charlotte replied. A place where luxury means making everyone feel valued. Christopher joined them, reviewing customer feedback on his tablet. Satisfaction scores are already up 15%. Bookings are increasing, and we're getting reviews praising our inclusive luxury approach. What about Victoria? Charlotte asked. Last I heard, she's working at a budget motel outside the city. Apparently, her reputation for discriminatory practices made her unemployable at higher-end establishments. Charlotte nodded, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. I hope she learned something from this. Some people never do, Christopher replied. But the important thing is that we've created something better here. A place where everyone is welcome. As they walked through the lobby, Charlotte noticed a young woman in casual clothes speaking with the front desk. The clerk was smiling warmly, offering to show her the available rooms without a hint of judgment. That's what real hospitality looks like, Charlotte murmured. Christopher squeezed her hand. Thank you for what you went through. It was terrible, but it showed us exactly what needed to change. It was worth it, Charlotte said, watching the young woman being treated with the respect and dignity that every guest deserved. Now the Grand Wellington truly is grand, not because of its marble and chandeliers, but because of how it treats people. 6 months later, the Grand Wellington had earned recognition as one of the city's most welcoming luxury hotels. It became known not just for its elegance, but for its inclusive approach to hospitality, a place where luxury meant exceptional service for everyone, regardless of appearance or background. Victoria's actions that day had inadvertently created something beautiful, a hotel that proved true class isn't about excluding others, but about elevating everyone who walks through your doors. The end.